This is an installation tutorial for the S30 splitter made by Skillard. It's available from Skillard.com. First, we're going to go over the components that come with the package so you have an understanding of what you're getting into. So if we look down here, we've got the back mounting bracket. You've got the front lip splitter. You've got 6 of these brackets that are slotted on one side, have a hole in the other. You're also going to get 3 bags of hardware. One that's going to be labeled bag A. This one's to mount the hardware or mount the brackets to the splitter, as well as the back bracket, and mount the splitter to the cross member and to the core support. The bag of hardware labeled B will be the one that secures it has the turnbuckles and will secure them to the front mounting points. The bag labeled C will have the turnbuckles and the hardware needed to mount from the side. So here we have the hardware bag labeled A open, and we can see hardware spread out over the splitter. You have these brackets with the slots in them and the hole on the other side. We're going to attach 4 of them to the splitter. It's going to be the first thing. These 2 will actually get mounted to the tow hook mounting points, but we'll get to that in a minute. So take notice on the orientation of these. Whereas this bracket is sideways, the lip is inward. This one on the back is coming forward. And so what I've done is you have these button head screws, and you'll put 2 of them through each bracket. The holes are fitted, so not putting a washer on the bottom side for a cleaner look underneath the car, but you're going to slide this up through. You're going to put the washer on the top side of the bracket, and then you're going to use these are metal lock nuts. That's why we're not using a lock washer. You're going to tighten, or you're going to finger tight it over the top. You'll notice that there is play in these brackets. So these are finger tight, but they're not tightened down. And you can see there is some adjustability front to back. Over here it's side to side if you need that for getting your turnbuckles lined up. You notice the bracket, the rear bracket is lined up. It also has slots, so when you put that in, you'll feed the bolt through, and you'll put the washer and the nut on there as well. These you definitely don't want to tighten up until you have the splitter mounted to the bottom of the car, because you're going to want to be able to adjust that so these back holes will line up in your cross member. As far as bolting it through the cross member, that will have the split washer, which you can see. So when you get to the point where you're mounting these 2 points at the rear into the cross member, you're going to use this same bolt. You're going to put the split washer on, then you're going to put the flat washer when you put them in the back. You'll notice here, these 2 holes mount into the core support. Use the same bolts. Use that same split washer, but in this case we're going to use a larger diameter washer. Open these up a little bit to give a little more adjustability in case your core support might not be completely true. And these holes are slotted side to side, so when you get it tightened up you can have some adjustability. So I'm going to go through, I'm going to get the rest of these brackets on, I'm going to get them tightened up, get the back bracket on. Again, not tightened yet, but just get it attached, and then we'll go to the next step. Okay, so here we have the splitter. It's got the brackets on it now. I went ahead and tightened up these 4 brackets, but remember that if need be, you can loosen them, and they do have play to adjust in the slots. This back bracket is on, but you can see here it is not tight, and so it can adjust as we go to put it on. So the next step we're going to do is we're going to get into the bag labeled C. I've opened it here. You're going to get the 10mm bolt out, lock washer, flat washer. Put them in, and then you have those 2 other brackets. So what you're going to do is you're going to slide this inside your bracket, and you're going to have the plus or the cross facing forward, and then come under here and take a look. I already have one in here. And this is the factory tow hook, and so you can see the two mounting locations. Your car should already have this bolt, but I'm supplying a new one in case you don't or it's just messed up. So you can see the orientation of how this is. This goes in, tightens back down. We'll do the same thing on the other side, and then I'll show you the next step. Okay, so the next step, we have the bag labeled B is now open. And so you can see we have more of the 10mm bolts. Got the lock washer, and then I've got 4 of the flat washers, and there's 2 of these. These are going to connect into the factory bumper mounting points, and these washers are just to add a little bit of adjustability. So if you need to space the way the turnbuckle mounts a little bit, you have them. You don't have to use all of them. You might find just one is totally fine. Same thing here. You can see I have the 8mm with some extra washers, and this one I just have put on here. You can see I got a couple washers on each side, and that's just in case you need it for a little bit extra spacing. Again, you probably won't, but just in case. So, and then you've got the M8 metal lock washer. So you'll slip that through, you get the turnbuckle in. But this is the way the turnbuckle is going to come when you open it. You're going to have the smaller turnbuckle is going to be in the front, and you can see, just as a point of reference, here's one of the turnbuckles out of bag C that goes along the side right here. It's larger, so that one will be on the side. These ones go in the front. And you'll notice that you have these, the 2 bolts that thread inside of it, and then you also have 2 more of these. One of these will need to be threaded out and replaced with this one because you need a little bit more length and you need this larger eyelet. And so the smaller end will mount to the bracket, and you want to make sure that your larger end is sticking out like so. I don't have the jam nut on this one as an example, but you do have that jam nut to tighten it back down. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to attach both of my turnbuckles here onto the front brackets and make sure I have the right bolts located in. Once we put the splitter on, we're going to need to adjust it in or out to make sure we have the adjustment. But you can see that they're put out a decent ways right here, so you can give you a frame of reference of where to start from. I'm not going to tighten this down yet until I have it all secured, but I just wanted to get it on there because it's easier to get it started now than after you already have it on the car. So the next step is we're going to get into bag C and do the whole thing for these side ones, and I'll show you that next. Okay, so here we have what was left in bag C, and you can see that we have the similar situation with the turnbuckles. Comes with the extra eye bolt, which is because of the extra length. So you're going to take one of each end of these out, replace it with this. After you do that, it's going to look like this. And so there's a larger eye bolt and then the smaller one. We're going to start with the smaller one again. You have the M8 hardware. You got a couple washers for that, as well as some lock nuts. So I'm going to start by feeding a washer on this end, slip it through my bracket. I'm going to stick the turnbuckle over the back side, the smaller eyelet again, feed the washer on, and then put the lock nut on. And it'll orient in like that. So then we will do the same thing on the other side, and after I get the turnbuckles on, we'll move to the next step. Okay, now as you can see, we have all the brackets, turnbuckles, they're all sitting on here. So what's the hardware we still have left? Right here, we have the hardware that we're going to use to attach through these holes to the core support. We've got this hardware with the washers that we're going to use in these back holes to attach to the cross member. That was from the bag labeled A. From the bag labeled B, we still have these 10mm with the lock washer and a few flat washer. Those are what we're going to use. You can see one's just threaded in right here. That's what we're going to use to attach the turnbuckle in the front and the factory bumper mounting point. And then from bag C, we have these two M8 bolts two M8 lock nuts, and then the large fender washers. So what we're going to do next is we're actually going to get this fitted up underneath here and start to get it secured into place. You can do this with two people, it's a little bit easier. I'm going to do it by myself. And the way I'm going to start with this is that I'm going to lay down underneath with the splitter on top of me, get it positioned in place, and then I'm going to start by hand threading into the core support, because that really does a good job of balancing it once you get these two bolts in place. Then I'm going to hand tighten in the back. Once we get to that point, I'm going to need to adjust the turnbuckles so that way they reach the mounting points appropriately, and we'll go from there. So let me get into position and we'll show you how this thing goes up. Okay, so I have it lifted up into place. You can see right here into the front core support, I've got these two bolts. They're just hand tight. You can see I can let go of this. It's pretty stable. I mean, it balances there pretty well. And so they aren't tight because what I'm going to want to do here in a minute is get out and check the outside and check the alignment, because you can see that there's adjustability front to back, side to side. And then as well, there's this bracket will adjust forward and back to basically make sure that you can get your alignment, which I'm using the hardware back here to go into the cross member. You can get the alignment to thread that right in. And once I get these threaded in, then I can come back and tighten this. So it's pretty tight clearance with this oversized sway bar right here. And if need to, you can actually take this bracket and flip it to the bottom side to give yourself a little more clearance right there if you need to. So it's just an option. And you can see, I know people have asked, why is there this cutout in the middle? And you can see the lip that sticks down in the core support, and I wanted to try to avoid cutting that off. So you can retain that because you have the cutout in the splitter. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to get out, I'm going to check the alignment to make sure. So I've come out and I've gotten the lip adjusted so that way it has the look that I want. I've gone back under, I've tightened the bolts that go into the core support, as well as the bolts in the splitter and that rear bracket, and then that bracket into the rear cross member. So what that's going to do is just going to keep it from shifting while we get the turnbuckles installed. So you can see here, this is one of the front turnbuckles, and I need to get it adjusted to line up with this bolt. So that bolt doesn't actually need to be in there, but I just need to line it up with the hole. And so I can twist in or out. I'm holding, the bottom side's not going to turn because we already had it fastened, but I'm holding this top one so it doesn't spin freely while I adjust the center. And so once I get that adjusted to where I want it, then it gives me the opportunity to put this bolt in just in the factory mounting point here that was the factory bumper mount. And so with these extra washers, if you want to space it off, you can. And basically get this put in. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to get this snug just like we have the bottom down here, and then at that point I can adjust the turnbuckle just to get it snug. Then I'm going to do the other one in the front. I'm going to show you how to do the sides, and then from that point I can then adjust these turnbuckles to tighten. And then once it gets to the point where I'm satisfied, I'm going to tighten the bolt that connects it to the bracket down below, as well as tighten this in right here. So let's move over next and do the turnbuckles on the side. So here we are on the side getting ready to install this turnbuckle to the bracket that we put on the tow hook. If you're having trouble, you might find it's easier to pull the wheel off. I think that we can get by without doing that here. So if you can see in here, I've got this turnbuckle already adjusted to where we want it. And you can see the little plus that's in here, hopefully. And so I'm putting this on the front side of that bracket. I've got my M8 bolt and the big fender washer. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to slide that right through the center of that T. Then I have another fender washer that's going to slip on the back side, as well as that M8 nut. That M8 nut is then going to thread right on there. And then again, I can adjust this turnbuckle by turning in the center to get it the tension that I want. Pull it up on the side nice and snug. And then once I get all the turnbuckles in place and get them adjusted to have the tension that I want, then I can come back, tighten the through bolt in both of these brackets, get it snugged down, and then you're done. So you've got the two mounting points into the turnbuckle. On this side as well as the other side, you have the two mounting points from the frame of the car down to the splitter in the front. You have the 2 points that go into the cross member in the back, as well as the core support in the front. You may have seen the picture on the website of me standing on the front of this, and it makes for a real solid mounting. If you have any questions, email me at ben@skillard.com. Again, the splitter is available from skillard.com, and hope you enjoy.